expertise, yes, every Tuesday to delve into any issue, any topic that we have chosen on the program, Matters Arising. Well, being back on B is my name once again, and we have two guests again in the house. Now, the topic that we are treating today is talking about the fresh $6 billion approval. Is it an economic boom or a bane, or maybe doom, should I say? And just recently, the National Assembly hurriedly, I would say, just approved this $6 billion loan. And talking about the federal government trying to, revamp the infrastructural sector, the agricultural sector, the health sector, and all other sectors. Well, that was their supposed excuse. And people were complaining, they took some points. There was a time that President Bola Tinubu said there will be no borrowing again. But now we have gone up borrowing again. Are these loans being, used to service other loans borrowed, before now? We don't know. My guests will, I'm sure they will delve deep into this matter. I have in the house Dr. Adekunle Onile. He's an economist and regular caller on this program. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
And I have a seasoned journalist here, Sam Nwoko. He's a journalist, and we have met many times outside on reportorial jobs and journalistic issues. You're welcome, Mr. Nwoko.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and you can join us on our GoTV channel 105, Star Times channel 113, and of course Facebook and IG at BCOS TV, Twitter at BCOS_TV, and you can also watch us live on our YouTube channel, BCOS TVS. The program is Conversation, and yes, we can also call it Conversation. Matters Arising. Yes, let me quickly go through some excerpts here. And like I said, Nigeria's fresh $6 billion loan infrastructural development. Yes, loan infrastructural development, seeking. And the Senate approved the President Bola Tinubu's request for an external loan of $6 billion. The loan, it was said, is aimed at plugging fiscal gaps, financing key infrastructure projects, and repaying relatively expensive domestic and external debts, like I mentioned earlier. And the breakdown includes $5 billion from First Abu Dhabi Bank for budget implementation, and $1 billion from UK Export Finance for rehabilitating Lagos Port Complex and Tinkan Island Port. The approval comes as Nigeria's total public debt stands at $110.3 billion, equivalent to about $159.2 trillion as of December 31, 2025. It goes on and on. Yes, let me start from Dr. Onile. Is an economist. What is really happening to Nigeria?
Thank you very much. There is nothing untowardly happening to Nigeria. Borrowing, debt accumulation is not strange all over the world. And even within individual household, family, even companies, successful companies all over the world, Apple, Microsoft, and the rest, they all, one time or the other, go out borrowing.
Even individuals?
Yes, individuals. What might cause some alarm is when we borrow unproductively, or when our ability to pay back is in jeopardy. That is, if I want to take it from the perspective of the national economy, if our debt to GDP ratio is not good enough. You understand what I mean by that? That is our ability to pay back our debt based on our output, our national output, gross domestic product of the country. So this is where we can raise an alarm. Or where when those in power or in government take this loan, even if the country can pay back, they take this loan and they channel it to unproductive areas. Or through corruption, the money is embezzled. So these are because people should have a clearer view. Because whenever people hear about debt and borrowing, everybody thinks in the negative. You understand? It is not a cause to be a borrower. Yeah. As a matter of fact, almost all the rich men in the world, or in fact, let me put it this way, one of the most advanced economy in the world is the USA economy.
Yes.
And they are also the greatest debtor
yes.
in the world. The same thing with China. China debt is in trillions.
But they are productive.
Yes, that is the difference. The money should be channeled towards where the money will now bring dividends. You understand? So it is from that dividend that the country will be able to pay the loan. I mean, pay not only the loan, the interest on it. You understand? Because if you borrow and you're not able to repay the principal and also the interest, this is terrible. You understand? But if you channel that borrowed money into productive venture that will not only yield back the money, it will also yield back the interest and also give you additional gains.
Okay. So what we are saying now is that borrowing without production,
yes,
it might be it might be economically dangerous.
In fact, it is suicidal.
Suicidal.
It's suicidal.
Yeah, that is a strong word.
Yes.
Mr. Nwoko,
yes,
Nigeria's debt stock, he made some points towards that when he was explaining some issues there.
Yeah, Doc said when your debt to GDP ratio is not balanced, or at least near balance, or something that you can say is healthy, then it's suicidal. And that's exactly why Nigerians are concerned. Now, our debt threshold was a cause for concern. It was looking like we wanted to go beyond our elastic limit. But the Minister of Finance then, when you say, okay, you want to build power plants, and the power plants have relapsed into debts, and is now creating a kind of logjam for the economy, it becomes a problem. So that's why some of the people who have been worried about the extent to which we are borrowing and the frequency are very, very worried. And now we are at an amount which sounds highly frightening. Not because of anything, but because the Naira is now hovering around between 1,003 and 1,350, 400-ish. And when you leave it at that and you borrow $6 billion or a little less or a little more, and you convert this into Naira, it will sound so humongous until you begin to see how much it is in real value. So that is why Nigerians are worried, and that is why Nigerians are asking questions. Now, there are so many areas of debt to cover. Look at the controversy that's going on with the gas. So all these are effects of money in the system, which to a large extent you cannot completely say that its control, its usage, its deployment had gone as cleanly as the government has had told us it would go. So those are some of the things I see as the problem in the debt issue that is
Okay, well,
in the country now.
We have heard now and saying why go see, but we don't see the results here in Nigeria.
Okay.
Doctor wanted to say something.
Yeah, I want to expatiate that when people get worried about the borrowing culture in Nigeria, the other time you were quoting the Minister of Finance saying that we are still within. Shall you understand?
The threshold, yes.
The minister is right. Because you see, the other time I was talking about debt to GDP ratio. Now, for Nigeria, our ratio is low, which is good. The higher, then the more the problem, the ratio. Now, our own ratio in Nigeria is still between 35 to 50, which is still within internationally borrowers are willing and they are giving us the money.
Yes.
We are still credit worthy.
Worthy.
If we are not, you won't see anybody risking their money to give us. So when the populace is worried that this money we are piling on, no, that is not our current problem. Our current problem is management. You understand?
That is it.
And even in that management aspect, the greatest challenge is our deficit financing, budget deficit financing.
I was coming there.
If you look at it, out of these 6 billion that the government is taking, 5
Yes.
is towards budget capital project implementation. Because the problem is that on an annual basis, the revenue that is accruing to Nigeria, it's not as if we don't have good revenue base. That's why our, what do you call it now? Our external reserve is growing. You understand now? We do have problem. We are still having our revenue, which is still stable. You understand? And if they tie it to your income, your revenue. So there is little room for Nigeria to maneuver. You understand? So whether we like it or not, first line charge, the debt.
Okay. Now, Mr. Nwoko, I knew you wanted to say something then, but you know, according to what the loan is meant for now, like I read earlier, it is aimed at plugging fiscal gaps, financing key infrastructure projects, which we don't really see, and repaying relatively expensive domestic and external debt, like you said. Okay, now, well, that is my own opinion. I can read a political undertone here. Is it not because the 2027 elections is around the corner that they want to use this money for, you know, doing the normal thing that they do, all these politicians?
Now, you see, to a large extent, I sometimes wonder how the legalese and the registers in the financial sector often help us, all these. I don't know how much they help us. But one thing I know is that they often leave people more confused than anything else. I will revert to the example of the GENCOs. You know, we've had 3 financial years, 3 budget cycles of we have paid these people, or their money, their debt has been approved. It is also one of the domestic debts, which is very expensive, which the government is talking about. And make that as one. Secondly, our debts are expensive because when you borrow, you plow it back into loan servicing, more or less, because that's what the larger chunk percentage of our budget goes into. So that makes it 2. So you are borrowing to pay debts, whereas your income, you know, our receipts our earnings are already compromised, kind of. They are already mortgaged. We remember the unsubstantiated, substantiated allegation that our oil had been used upfront to borrow. Well, so when you aggregate all those things, you would understand that we are not borrowing because we really need it, but we are borrowing because we need to stay afloat. Our receipts, our earnings don't seem to be enough to do anything. But if you now want to bring it to the politics of it, the politics of it includes the fact that when elections are coming, there are heightened activities in the economic sector. And this is one of it. When the speed with which this loan was approved called for suspicion.
Yes.
I don't know if doctor will agree with me.
Yeah.
Because on behalf of the president then, that's the late President Buhari, the Senate president said, anything you bring will receive our express approval. And a thought came to my mind straight. I said, Buhari's rubber stamp is ready. Somehow, we have a similar scenario here. Whatever that is brought to the National Assembly, sometimes we not even go through the regular expected debates.
Yes.
They will not go through those processes that will expose to Nigerians the real intent of some of these loans. But they will tie it to infrastructural financing, to debt servicing, which we all know about, to payment of domestic debts, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, how does this come back to be of benefit to the average Nigerian, for whom all these monies are being borrowed? So when these questions are left hanging, I go back to the same spot of saying that Nigerians question some of these things because those who can decipher it, who are not experts in economics, economic experts like Doctor here, who understand how it is going.
The terrain.
Yeah, they will leave us to ask questions, to say, okay, what we know of borrowing is you go, get money so that you can fulfill certain obligations. And when these obligations are fulfilled, how come you never really end a payment of these loans? I remember when Obasanjo had to pay so much that Okonjo-Iweala, they had to involve nearly everything Nigerian to make sure that we came out of the debts. So by the time we saw the nitty-gritty of it, we saw that what we were spending servicing the loan was more than the loan itself. And yet we had not started payment of the loan itself. The one the Yoruba will call Ojuowo, the real amount itself, we had not started paying. But we were paying more, servicing these debts. So some of these things need to be explained to Nigerians so that debates like this will not be held in our various cocoons to be able to explain exactly why we are borrowing at the rate at which we are borrowing.
Doctor,
Yeah.
you said you wanted to say something about what I said the other time.
Yeah. You see, borrowing as a culture is an economic management strategy. Yeah. But still, people think negative about it. That's why I told you the other time that the mere fact that you are a debtor does not mean you are in the red. If I ever tell you that one of the greatest debtor in Nigeria today is Dangote, Aliko Dangote, you won't believe it. And he's still the richest man. The mere fact that money has a time value makes it an essential commodity that alone, that is a penny today, is like double the amount tomorrow. You understand what I'm trying to say? If you have 1 naira in your pocket today, it means you have probably 5 naira in your pocket tomorrow. Because within that time frame, inflation will come in. So you understand what you can. So the way that rich people big business people, big countries manage money and finances, is that they leverage on borrowing. You understand now? And those who are even the creditors, do you know that the way the world is structured and the economy of countries are structured, you have people who have plenty of resources that they don't have use for. There are people with this money. That's the funny thing. There are groups like the Paris Club, the World Bank, and so IMF. They have money, but they don't have projects. They want to spend the money. That is the difference. You understand? Nigeria have money, but we have unlimited projects. That's another thing. Our budget is limited for the whole year. But what Nigeria need or desire is unlimited. Even if we approve 500,000 kilometers of road every year, it's still not going to satisfy our requirement in the country. Because our requirement is unlimited. So, based on that, government will now use a little of what they have now and then borrow from those who don't have what to do with money. There are a lot of people who don't have what they want to do with money. And it's also happening with individuals too. That's why you have all these allied jobs, all that will collect other people's money. That's what IMF and the World Bank are doing. They will put resources of others, so you understand. And then they will now start trading with it. The only problem that African nations have always had with borrowing, why we don't normally have the advantage, I've told you, is corruption. Money that are supposed to be used productively are turned into the rulers' pockets.
That is why the people are complaining. The people don't believe that all these...
One thing people should understand. If you tell your government not to borrow because you are afraid they will chop the money, you understand, it will hurt the economy more. That's what people don't understand.
And sometimes I wonder if it would not be better if we create certain models for ourselves. Like, look at what we do with some road infrastructure, for instance. You travel to a stretch, you see where sukuk is used
sukuk, yes.
to, we came up with BOT, build, operate, and transfer. That is no longer popular, especially with government now. Government has gone back to doing projects directly so that they can finance it by themselves. I also think of the coastal highway now.
Yes.
So how are we financing the coastal highway? Is it, needs are insatiable. The needs are so huge, yet we don't seem to be channeling our borrowings properly. So that is where I see a problem in all of this. I don't see a problem in borrowing.
Yeah. Let me add this, sir.
Thank you.
But is it because Nigeria is a large country? So
No, it's not because Nigeria, the Mambila power plant and so on,
yes,
for which people have been charged for corruption today. So why do we always have to relapse?
The Ajaokuta is there for many years.
Yes. I remember visiting Ajaokuta with a team of journalists, and after we went in through one area of the plant, and after, everything there was 95% complete, 99% complete. It's just for us to start. And when we came out at the other end of it, after the tour, one of the journalists broke down in tears. We began to console her, to say, Madam, what is the problem? In fact, I thought it was a news she got on her telephone or something. Her problem was, why will Nigeria leave such a huge investment to rot without anybody being worried? So she wept throughout the journey back to Lokoja.
So many investments like that in Ibadan here. Talk about ASIDEM, that project, huge project, steel project that former President Ibrahim Babangida came to commission. I think it has been turned into a school now. He abandoned the project. Now, talk about the various turnaround maintenances
of our
refineries. Well, various huge amounts of monies in dollars were said to be used. nothing worked.
Yeah. Let me now shine some
and
light.
Remember again, sir, when they said our refineries will work, Kaduna, Warri, and
Port Harcourt,
Warri,
and
they gave us a kind of Sakama J that the refineries were working, but it was not actually working. And people, workers are there receiving huge salaries. Just look at that scenario. Yes, Doctor.
I want to shine some light again on this issue. Now, in an attempt to reduce corruption from taking loans and debt profile of a country, the creditors themselves are monitoring. That is where I'm going. Because when the president traveled to UK and landed that $1 billion loan, which is part of this 6 million we are talking about, a lot of people didn't study the loan agreement very well. We just reached a conclusion that here they come again. They wanted to mortgage our economy. They said it is those Europeans. It was one company in UK who will now bring its own. They talk. Everybody talk as if those who are in the administration of the loan don't even have a common sense. It's not like that. The way it is like this, you see, the loan that those UK creditors wanted to give, naturally, they've studied us in Africa. The new ones, they give it in cash. The next thing is that
go and buy private jets.
They are in a way trying to help us, help the population that are now skeptical. That, okay, what do you say you want to do with this money? The Nigerian government said these are the projects that we want to implement. We want to improve Apapa ports. Good. The company now said, give us a blueprint of everything you want to do there. Huh?
Yes, I was coming to that. But
so give us a blueprint of everything you want to do there. It is those infrastructures that will now be monetized in terms of paperwork, not in terms of giving you a check. You understand now? So, and to do that, since those who were to give the loan are actually the people that, if they have given us in cash, Nigerian government will still run through to go and get the equipment,
and the manpower.
to go and get the manpower and expertise. So instead of round tripping, you understand, those companies will come and do it. They put a value, you understand, to the investment, to the project.
But Doc, you see, the journalist in me is welling.
No, it's good.
If you look at our loan implementation ratio, is it healthy enough? Because sometimes you notice that we get these loans, encumber our own economy, and at the end of the day, the things for which these loans were got will still not be off the ground to a very large extent. I mean, going back to power.
That is why I said, even in your house, human wants are insatiable. And resources are so scarce. When we say resources are scarce, it's not as if they are not available. You understand? It's subject to your needs. There is no way, even if we take trillions and trillions of money today, that what Nigeria needs will be satisfied. All Nigeria needs is good management
and governance.
And
it's not the loan that is our problem. That's why I said people are not focusing on the issue. The focus should not be on the loan, on the management of the loan.
And perhaps they should also focus on how we can begin to trust those who are managing the loans, because even the ones who may seem to be doing what the people expect them to do with the loans are still not telling us.
And that's why I said those who are now putting down the money have decided to put a new style. And that style, contrary to what people are thinking, is profitable to Nigeria too.
Well,
because people are now saying that that means it is the economy of UK that will be boosted. because employment will be generated here, not here.
Not here. Yeah,
As if here, we actually generated the employment. You understand now?
Yes.
Because once we give somebody a contract here, he will still go use that money to go and import from outside. Not as if it's going to and don't blame them too. Once we establish a company in Nigeria to produce anything, it is we, the masses, the Nigerian people, that will run it down.
Beginning with Amonile.
So that circle.
And the immediate family.
Exactly. So that circle is all encompassing. That is the issue. That's why it is a cankerworm. That corruption is endemic. It's right in our system, both with the leaders and with the followers. Once you employ people in your organization today, you understand now. They don't want to build with the organization. Unlike so many of you have been in service. Sure, you understand? Just employ a small boy or a girl now in your shop. Within the first 1 month, he's thinking of how much he's going to get from
that shop.
Not his salary I'm talking of, beside the salary. And if after a month or two he doesn't meet that target, you say this is not a job. Reason. Once they believe that they won't get any extra jara, and what is the so-called extra jara? Stealing.
Stealing, yes.
Once they believe that. So that's why I said, when you are able to address the leaders, we also should address our own community, our own grassroots. Because it's what we are showing that all of us are reaping. But, as a but, it is difficult for the masses to change. The change have to come from
the top.
You understand?
Okay, yes, Mr. Nwoko, could this borrowing decision influence, upcoming politicians and maybe sometimes elections?
Well, if we take the last of the loans, for instance, one of the components of the entirety of the loan package, the money we got from England, it will not influence politicians only. It will not influence politicians in terms of how much is in their own pocket as individual politicians, but it will influence their bragging rights. It will influence them to say, we were able to get this into the economy, and see, it is working. See, our ports are better now. Our ports are decongested. There are no more ports. Here is our scorecard based on the loan we get. This is the dress I made from it, or this is the wife I married from that loan, or this is why I have brought it to share with you so that you can vote for me. No. In terms of that, no. But in terms of how it has affected our economy, yes, the politician can be influenced.
Let me answer the question you asked the other time about whether this loan, because election period is coming, is approaching. Yeah, a good politician must have something to show. That is the essence of democracy itself. You understand? Now, I told you the other time, when you said the National Assembly approved in record time, they know what they are doing. Election period is approaching. Projects must be seen by the electorate, be implemented. And since there is not much money presently to implement all the approved projects in the budget, they have to look for external loan. So you understand now, to make sure that by the time they go back to the people to campaign, they will have projects that they will say, this is the ongoing project we are doing. Where the money comes from
does not matter.
It doesn't matter. It's not the important thing. So you understand? So that is the reason I'm answering that question. That's the reason why it was approved in record time. Politicians will always be politicians.
But I don't
So in a larger sense, it influences them.
Yes.
It's only that those from whom they got the money, the creditors themselves, are wiser now. They will say, okay, let's go to that your project site and let's work on it together, so that they can go and do their campaign and do the politicians thing and talk about it, whereas financing and other expertise required for such projects to be completed would come from the creditors.
As for the coastal road contract, now that is a project fully financed by private developer. That is the concept. Now, at a point, people who are hearing the fact that the government said, no. You understand?
Is it not true public-private partnership?
No. It's 100% fully financed by private person. You understand? Now, what it comes to, why it is still PPP, why it's still a public-private partnership is that the private person now has a time frame to recoup its investment.
Okay.
Not that the government is taking a loan to pay for the project or is taking Nigerian income to implement it. You understand? The government has two options. Either not to carry the project, to carry out the project now, because there is no money. There is no huge amount of money like that to implement such coastal route. Or to use this method they are using. So this method they are using is economically the best method because it is not costing Nigerian taxpayer anything. Contrary to the assertion people are floating. Sure you understand now? It's not. And for you and me, we have an opportunity of benefiting from it before we end our lifetime. You understand what I mean by that?
Yes.
That is what government can do today. They are now able to do it today instead of waiting for the next 5-10 years when they will have enough money to do it.
I remember a time, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, when one, what's the name of that company? Babalaki.
Okay.
Yes,
Babalaki.
Yes. But I think along the line, something went wrong. He was supposed to construct that road and, manage it for about some
20 years or thereabouts. You see, it's on the coastal road too. I think the government is committing close to, because, some form of counterpart funding up to 30%.
Let me clear that.
Engineering, procurement, and construction and so on, which is the bulk of the job itself, is from
you see, the
contractors.
They smuggle that aspect into it, but it's still not that government is it's like, let me put it this way. The way it has been framed is that it's like government itself is loaning the company money. No, I'm coming. That is, the company will pay back that 30% you are talking about.
Yeah.
So it's not as if government is spending its own money. That's another thing people should. That's why I said all these things have some intricacies.
Technicalities.
You understand now? So this, use it for so number of years, hand it over to Nigerian government. You understand? Now, along the line, the contractor is having problem with financing because the financing is going to be multilateral from different sources, banks and financial institutions.
Yes.
Because it's a huge amount of money. Now, government now came in as a financial institution now. Not that government is using its money
to finance
to be part of the project. Because that is what kills most of the other projects you are referring to, all these refineries and co, where government pumping directly its own money. You understand now? And of course, our society being what we are, and civil servants, let me use that term, being what they are, they will run it like no man's business. You understand? But the private person will not run it that way. That is why government is borrowing that private person. Not that government is pumping its own money into the project. Because government is pumping its own money into the project, if those in charge of management mismanage the money, they are not going to lose personally. It is Nigerian government that will lose. But in this arrangement now, if they mismanage the project, they are the ones who will lose. Nigerian government will not lose anything.
Yes, we don't have too much time now. Again, Mr. Walker, briefly before we leave on the program, what should institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the World Bank, and other organizations. What do you think they can play? How do you think they can, guide Nigeria's debt decisions?
On a large scale, they have been doing that. They've been providing models. They've been, excuse me, they've been giving us guidelines. They've been providing advice and sometimes even helping us with some of our creditors and so on. So for all these Bretton Woods institutions, they are doing what they are supposed to do. They gather all these creditors and then we use them and they also use us. Because it's a two-way thing. You rub my back, I rub your back kind of thing. However, the trust, the management of some of these things when it comes here, especially the ones that are purely government things. States also borrow, and they also form part of the general loan stock, for which Nigeria is known. But all these institutions, they are doing their jobs, but it is for us to also develop a kind of homegrown system through which we can monitor how they are monitoring us, so that we will know that if they are doing the right thing for us and for our population, we will know. If what they are doing for us is not helping our situation, we'll be able to stand up to them and say, no, we don't want to go the route you have given us. We want to take another route. So for me, the institutions, they are there calling the shots where they are required to do so. And for us too, we are tagging along.
Yes. Yes, Doctor, just briefly, how do you think the IMF and the World Bank can, just monitor, just briefly before we leave?
Yes. The shrewd people, when it comes to loan giving out, are Chinese. And in the last 5 or 6 or 7 years past, many African countries have had their future mortgage.
Yeah, they've been running towards.
You understand? The Chinese are very clever. They will attach national assets to their loan. And also default, they take over the national assets. Yes. So this is where the IMF and the other institutions have a great role to play. You understand?
Yes.
That is the basic thing required of them now to avoid this Chinese
syndrome. Should we call it a syndrome?
Yeah, that is exploiting African countries.
Yes.
You understand? And once this is achieved, there will be some kind of relief. Because they are so clever that, just like we mentioned earlier, for the next 50, 100 years, you will not even pay the principal. You will be paying the interest. So
yes, I want to thank you very much, Dr. Adekunle Onile, who is an economist and a seasoned journalist, Sam Nwoko. Yes, we've been delving on this fact about loan borrowings, especially in Nigeria, by the Nigerian government. Fresh $6 billion loan approval, economic boom or bay. Yes, we've been discussing extensively on this issue and some other issues attached. I want to thank you very much, Dr. Adekunle Onile, for coming on the program.
it's a pleasure.
And Mr. Sam Nwoko, a journalist, seasoned journalist, yes.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Yes, the program has been Matters Arising on BCOS Television, Ilya Kedorita Bashon, right here in the city of Ibadan. I want to thank my producer, Yemi Alao, assistant producer, Muti Ogunwale, supervising producer, Bunu Yedemi, and my executive producer, Dotun Olaiton. We'll come your way again with another edition of Matters Arising next week, Tuesday. Good afternoon.